How to double your salary, part 21, chapter 6, developing staff and subordinates. The quote from Bible, what you deny to your brothers cannot be demanded from your father. How can you cut the same branches you climb up to reach the top? My story is like that. Throughout my career, my staff built my career. Suppose we are all in a building, how can we be safe in the first floor if floodwaters enter the ground floor? I just took care of my staff. In turn, they built my career. For the sake of some of my staff, I fought. For some, I shed tears. To some, I apologized. With few, I joked and shared. All of them I supported. Few were about to be dumped. I rescued them. In fact, even if you agree or not, your staff build your reputation, while your boss can spoil your reputation. My subordinates may not be like the monkey army of Sri Ram. Of course, I never claimed to be Bhagwan Ram. But some of my staff are better than me, and few even are more honest and hardworking. In fact, many of my staff members were so good that I owe my raise to my staff and colleagues, not so much as to my bosses. I know you will say each one should have a mentor. Yes, I too had some people. Nothing wrong in that theory. My bosses used to joke, you are lucky to have good staff. It's on the contrary. Many times I landed with a few troublemakers and few discarded candidates in my team. But I never got disheartened. I worked with them, through them, and for them. Developing subordinates. Never forget the fact that our subordinates are the heir apparent of our empire. Like a king would never, lose an opportunity to train the prince. We should never abandon the training and developing of the subordinates. In fact, if we develop our staff, we can relax and delegate our job to them and then focus on some other work. If the two horses are pulling the cart, both have to be strong and pull with the same force and vigor if the cart has to move fast. So, if we work hard and our staff also work hard, the work will be completed quicker. All have to remember that contribution to the company we work for has to be double our salary, so that at a later date we can get the higher salaries. Because we all desire better salaries, but better salaries are the result of better work, I would say. While I would like to share some of the real-time examples, now this one is about empowerment. First principle of developing staff is empowering them. Empowerment alone makes the subordinates responsible and accountable. Freedom should be given to the staff so that they can plan their job well and they can come up with innovative and creative ways to complete the job. Follow-up is good, but over follow-up will demotivate the staff. Also, to make staff observe their own shortcomings and weaknesses and correct them, we need to empower them. Never forget to ask them to sum up the lessons learnt after completing the assignment. Another important factor is planning. Let them learn to plan on their own, even resources estimation. Many times, people err on the resources. So, if you empower them, they will learn that. Continuing my saga of life, I will share two experiences which not only helped them but gave me a satisfaction. One is about a girl from a weaker section, and another was a bright man from a village background. One had social bias, and the other had a cultural bias. When I was in a public sector company, we had a peculiar way of increments of uh, of less than 3 to 4% rise. So I realized soon that it may take a long time for me uh, to get there, double my salary. Uh, while doing so, uh, I had one subordinate, let her name Vaishali. Uh, in fact, I never realized if you are a group of society who was given a privilege to get her job on priority. Without going much in details, uh, Vaishali, while recruitment was waived of certain qualifications and abilities, and which made her inadequate in her job. Though she was sincere and hardworking girl, she always had to catch up with others, you know, to complete their job in time. After being shunted from one boss to the other, she finally landed with me. My boss called me one day and then said, Raj, Vaishali will work with you and please guide her. I knew my boss shifted his problem to me. Instead of taking it as an avoidable alternative, I embraced the situation with open arms. My target was not only to make Vaishali competent, but help her advance in her career and help her achieve double their salary. How can she do it? I mean, when she is not even fit to be, in the present position itself. So I have taken my task to first boost her confidence. There was an incident in our office which built her confidence. One day, our seventh floor office complex suddenly became quiet. No more staff moving in the floor. I asked Vaishali what was the problem. She said everybody is on strike. So I was surprised Vaishali did not join that strike. I asked her why did she not join the group. She said I need your permission. So I asked Vaishali, why don't you defy me and go? Then she said, the way you have given me confidence, and then also you showed as a role model the responsibility for a job, I couldn't leave it. So I was really impressed with her honesty and commitment to job. So we had spend the time, I'm explaining her like what all the things which she need to improve and then what all things which she need to do. And then by the end of the day, my we realized that she is the only one who has not participated in the pen down strike. Next day, my boss called me and then he asked me what I did the trick to see that she is not joined the strike. I said this is the cordial relations and her personal integrity. So he was impressed. He asked me what should I do. I said next time when I recommend her for promotion, he should not object. I said fine, we'll see when she is eligible we can promote her. So though once she picked up the confidence, the more and more jobs I started delegating to Vaishali, and then she started learning, and soon she became a very competent employee. At one time, nobody wanted to take Vaishali into the department, and now she is eligible for promotion. A lesson for HR is that don't condemn anybody, and your past performance is an indication for the future performance. What is the need for every year giving performance appraisals? So, like they say, there is no saint without past. and no sinner without future. So any performer, bad performer, can be improved upon. And I would say it's like the coach and athletes relation. 50% of the performance of the staff depending on the boss, and 50% on the staff. So that way I always considered myself to be lucky that I took my role or my responsibility for the poor performance of my staff, and I tried to develop them. There is one more gentleman, let's call him Rakesh. He is a very angry young man working for me during my prestigious petrochemical project. As recruitment was tough, we had to pick up qualified engineers from several parts of the country, and some were from metro cities and some were from villages, and some were had this experience of working in multinationals, and some didn't have the experience. So the Rakesh landed with me, who didn't have a multinational experience nor very good command over English, and of course his rustic village background has not given him the diplomacy to handle some senior staff. He used to complete his job at alarming speed and sometimes in a brazen way. Few times he must have flouted a safety protocol. Few times he ignored caution, and one time threatened the project construction head. So thus he picked up many antagonists. Nobody talked during the project, but all of them were united when the project was nearing completion. As a result, he was to be awarded dreaded 2, which is one step away from which calls for immediate sacking. While 5 rating was the best rating, 3 is an average, nobody wanted to have 2. Rakesh ended up with the rating 2. But how to avoid it or how to face it? I took upon myself to support Rakesh, and the rest of the story is 1 year of my coaching and making him eligible for a best company in the world. I worked in that international company. The name is withheld, but they opened an office in India, and then I was talking to their head of operations in Bangalore, and he said they were looking for some off-site experts, and so I kept training Rakesh into that. So my training started almost a year back. How my doubling salary formula is applicable here, but my belief is that if I could help Rakesh in I started giving Rakesh assignments which were useful to him in the new MNC, and as our new project had so many areas which needed improvements, operation groups were asking for improvements, and I pointed out many modifications. I kept Rakesh in charge of the same. Rakesh overcame both constraints, i.e. resource constraint and time constraint. Though he didn't like the job well, but he performed very well. On top of his past performance, appraisal was not a problem, and then Rakesh had attended that interview in that MNC multinational company by my suggestion, and his boss or the future boss called me up and then said, your training really worked out, and your Rakesh has answered very well. Okay, so thus from a near rejection, Rakesh raised like a phoenix. The lesson to be learned that if we condemn our staff, we will also be condemned. One day, if we help our staff to overcome their difficulties, and automatically not only we improve, they will also improve. We will close this session at part 21 with one more example of a staff. I always used to say, learn first and earning is later. So there was a general manager by name Kumar, who was sincere and hardworking, qualified engineer. His earlier experience did not give him the advantage of petroleum industry, though he worked in a chemical company and a petrochemical company. So though Kumar performed well, his experience in on paper was a disadvantage to him because he didn't have petroleum refinery experience, which is calls for senior positions. So then he was a little bit poor in communication. So I have given him assignments in improving his communication and given him the full in charge of my group, and he was enthusiastic to learn. Right from communication to management, many issues are best learned by doing them. Okay, so I used to dump all my work to him. I used to load him with the job while watching him how he would take it. Kumar was excellent in taking up new jobs and was quick learner. A stage has come when Kumar was doing all my job and I was satisfied with his work. Confident that he could do the job, I took leave during a very crucial time, and my boss was upset with me for taking leave, but I convinced my boss that Kumar could handle all the jobs. This has two problems. One is in Indian context, the staff if the staff is competent, it's some bosses will consider themselves to be a threat. So that is one reason why they don't empower them or delegate the jobs to them. But of course, I didn't have this problem. So Kumar did not take much time to learn the job, and then when I realized that he deserves much better compensation, I got an offer from a foreign company that as a head of the process group. I could not take it up for different reasons. So I suggested to Kumar that why not he take up that, and then I gave him a recommendation. So ultimately he got the job, and his job was his selection was not difficult, and he got a offer, and then he went for a double the job. So I think with this the development of staff will close down, and next week next part 22 will discuss about how if boss is not cooperating with you, how it will happen. And there is one my staff was really antagonizing my boss, and then he advised me not to bring him for the further meetings. And there is one lady, as she was pregnant, she couldn't continue the work, and then she wanted some light work for that. And there was one boss, for a strange reason, he wanted to sack my whole process team. And there was one gentleman who didn't want to get promotion, and finally there is one guy who wanted to sell the company. Now we will cover all those cases in the next this thing, that is part 22. So today I will close down this group, part 21, how to develop your staff. Okay, so other things we will cover in the next week. Thank you. Signing off, Rajsekhar, Paula Pragada.